Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here and listening to us chat about our Thanksgivings and our favorite sides. We really appreciate your time. I'm Katie Earle. I coordinate the University Express program, and I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services. And we're here with Jennifer Johnson from Highmark, BlueCross, BlueShield of Western New York. Thank you, Jennifer, virtually again. All right, so quickly, just housekeeping for our new folks. We have our chat and our Q&A open. So any questions or comments for Jennifer, feel free to put that right in there. Computer, if you're on that, located at the lower right-hand side of your screen. Tablet, touch your screen. That should bring up your options, and then you'll find your chat or Q&A. Just remember to click send. We'll thank our sponsors, which is my Department of Senior Services, Highmark, BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans for all their help. And Senior Services is here if you need anything or have questions about program services, you're wondering what you can get involved in, give us a call. We're at 858-8526. All right, the star of our show. Jennifer Johnson has been the Health Promotion Coordinator for Government Programs at Highmark since about 2009. For over 20 years, she's worked with older adults and Medicare Advantage plans. She's a Western New York native and a graduate of Canisius College. Jennifer is a certified wellness coach and certified nutrition and wellness consultant, specializing in fitness and wellness for older adults. She's also a registered yoga teacher and certified personal trainer. We'll get here for yoga eventually, folks. Jennifer lives in Hamburg with her husband and son. She's a voracious reader, enjoys running, yoga, and cooking, and she's here talking about fiber. Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. I love being with you guys. I wish I could be with you in person, maybe someday again. But if you have been with me before for some of my nutrition classes, you know that I love to talk about fiber. And that's kind of where this whole program came from. I think last semester, I don't remember what we were talking about, but we ended up getting on the topic of fiber. And I got so excited about it that we had to do a whole program on it. And so I have done this program in the past. You might have seen it before, but it is one of my very favorite topics to talk about. So let's jump right in. Let's try to jump right in. There we go. All right. So when we talk about fiber, everybody kind of has a sense of what fiber is. Everybody kind of has a sense that fiber is the stuff that makes you poop. Okay, we will have several references to poop today, so sorry for anybody who's a little squeamish. But everybody kind of has that sense of what fiber does for us. But if I asked most people to really define, hey, what is fiber really? A lot of people can't do it. So I like to give you some of the background here. What we call fiber, or dietary fiber, if you're looking at the nutrition facts label, what we call fiber is really an assortment of all the different parts of plants that humans can't digest. So when we consume foods that come from plants only, not animal foods, but foods that come from plants, there's a whole bunch of parts, different kinds of cells that make up different parts of the plants that our bodies just can't break down. And so they pass through our body pretty much the same way they go in. We break them down a little bit through chewing and the acids and the bacteria in our digestive system, break them down a little bit more, but for the most part, they don't change a whole lot. And these fibers come in all different varieties. So fiber isn't just one thing, okay? It's not just one entity that we can look at and say, hey, this is fiber. Fiber is actually hundreds or maybe even thousands of different kinds of substances, different kinds of plant parts. Some fibers get broken down a little bit in our digestive system, and the rest are basically just eliminated. They just go on a little trip through our digestive system, and they come out pretty much intact. We find fiber in lots of different plant parts. So in things like the cell walls of plants, so the cells that make up the structure of the plant cells. We find fiber in what's called pectin. So for all of my canners and jam makers out there, pectin is that stuff that thickens up when you cook it. So like when you cook, okra is a great example. it gets that gelatinous gummy kind of stuff, that's pectin. Or if you cook strawberries for a long time, they kind of gel up a little bit, and that's pectin. Now you also buy pectin, right? You buy it in the grocery store or the hardware store, and you add it when you're making jam. That just helps your jam gel up faster and a little more solidly. But pectin is found in all kinds of fruits. So long ago, before we had powdered pectin in the grocery store, people still made jam and jelly. They just cooked their fruit for a longer time and didn't add so much sugar, because eventually that pectin in the fruit would thicken up their jam. So pectin is another type of fiber. And then different kinds of gums. And you've seen these things on food labels. Xanthan gum and guar gum, and I can't even think about it. There's all different kinds out there. But all those different kinds of gums that you find in different products, those manufacturers add to products as thickeners. So they kind of act like pectin. They thicken up, give substance to whatever the product is. But those are found naturally in plant parts, and those are fiber, okay? They're fibrous. Our bodies don't break them down very much, and they pass through our bodies pretty much the same way they go in. Different plants contain different kinds of fibers. So over the years, you've heard me say that we need to eat a variety of different plants. We need to eat a rainbow. We need to eat different colors of fruits and vegetables and not eat the same fruits and veggies every day. In the same way that different plants contain different vitamins and minerals, different plants also contain different kinds of fibers. And it's just like it's good for our body to get different vitamins, it's good for our bodies to get different kinds of fibers too, because different fibers do different kinds of things in our bodies. So for example, when we consume fiber, the fiber passes through our digestive system all the way through the small intestine, pretty much unabsorbed. It doesn't change a whole lot up till that point. When fiber gets to the large intestine, this is where it starts to get broken down. And it gets broken down by that bacteria that live in our gut. Okay, so you've heard me talk about our bacteria before. We've done programs on prebiotics and probiotics. And the bacteria that live in our gut like to eat the fiber that we consume. And I use the word eat very loosely because the bacteria don't have mouths, okay? So they don't do anything as organized as chew and eat the fiber that we consume. Instead, what they do is they ferment it. They break it down a little bit. And that process is really, really good for our bodies, okay? It's really good for our digestive health. It's really good for our immune system. And different types of bacteria that live in our gut like to break down different kinds of fibers. So the more different kinds of fibers, the more variety of fiber that we get in our diet, the happier our gut bacteria are, because each of those specific bacteria can get the kinds of fiber that they like to chomp on. And so that means better health for us in a digestive sense, in an immune system sense. You've probably been hearing a lot lately in the news the last couple of years with all the pandemic going on, that a whole bunch of our immune system actually exists in our gut. And that's the bacteria. The job that those bacteria do in our gut contributes hugely, immensely to the health of our immune system. So fiber is really important, not just for our digestive health, but for our the health of our immune system as well. Okay. There are two main types of fiber. So these hundreds or thousands of different varieties of fiber can be lumped into two categories. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber, so if you've ever seen the word soluble before, you probably know what that means. Soluble means that these types of fibers dissolve or mix into the water in our bodies. So maybe soluble doesn't have a lot of meaning to you, but if I said water soluble, most people would know, oh, hey, that's something that dissolves in water. Okay, something is water soluble. So this kind of fiber is water soluble. When we consume it in our bodies, through our digestive system, it dissolves or mixes into the fluid that is in our digestive system. And it forms this gel-like material. I kind of think of it as Drano. If you've ever bought a jug of that like Drano gel, not the liquid stuff, but the actual like gel stuff that clumps out of the bottle, that's kind of what it's like. It's thick and it kind of glides through our digestive system. And this gel-like material slows the passage of food through our intestines. So it slows down the movement of food through our digestive system, makes food travel more slowly through the whole passage of our digestive system. And soluble fiber comes from the fibers that are found inside of plant cells. Insoluble fiber, right? One guess here, right? It's exactly the opposite. It doesn't dissolve in water, okay? So think of insoluble fiber like a sponge. Insoluble fiber doesn't dissolve in water, but it binds with water. It attracts water. So in the same way that you could take a dry sponge, put it in water, and it would soak up the water, but it doesn't mix with the water. The sponge and the water don't become one. The sponge just absorbs the water. That's insoluble fiber. That's the action of insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber is made up of the substances that make up the cell walls. Okay, so the stuff that's on the outside of the cell walls. And insoluble fiber encourages movement through the digestive system. And this is the type of fiber that we've traditionally called roughage. Okay, so if that's most of what you know about fiber, that fiber is roughage, that's this kind. Insoluble fiber is that roughage. And so think of it as bulk. Okay, it adds bulk to stools. This is the kind of fiber that keeps us regular. Okay, so when you see ads for things that are for foods that are high fiber, or you take a fiber supplement because it keeps you regular, this is the stuff. This is insoluble fiber. So notice here, soluble fiber slows the passage of food through the intestines. Insoluble fiber promotes movement. It speeds things up. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? One kind of fiber slows it down, the other kind speeds it up. Which one do we want? We want both, okay? So this is one of those Goldilocks moments here. We don't want food to pass through our digestive system too slowly, because if it passes through too slowly, then we get constipated, we get bloated, we get gassy, okay? And so this is what insoluble fiber does. It makes things move faster so that we have better bowel movements, okay? So it keeps the process going. But we also don't want food to move too quickly through the digestive system. If food moves too quickly through the digestive system, then we can't adequately absorb nutrients from our food because it doesn't spend enough time in our digestive tract. But also, then this can lead to things like diarrhea. Nobody wants that. So what we want is food to move through our digestive system at exactly the right rate. So we don't want it to be too fast or too slow. We want it to be just right. And so when soluble fiber and insoluble fiber work together and we get good, healthy amounts of both of them in our diets, food moves through our digestive tract at just the right rate. And we can absorb all the nutrients, but still have good, healthy bowel movements. Both types of fiber also play a role in weight control. So if you've ever tried to lose weight, you've maybe been part of Weight Watchers or something like that, you hear a lot about fiber and the role that fiber plays in weight control. When food travels through our digestive system at just the right rate, food keeps us full longer, okay? So when we eat too much insoluble fiber and food moves too quickly through our digestive system, we start to get hungry again too soon, okay? But if we eat too much soluble fiber, then we feel kind of sluggish and we feel too full for too long. We're not ready for the next meal when it comes. When we get the right amount of both kinds, we get food passing through the system at just the right rate so that we have a nice, healthy length of time between meals. Okay, we're not hungry too soon, and we can stay full a little bit longer so that we're not making poor choices when we get hungry and we're ready for something to eat. Most plant foods contain both kinds of fiber, so in different quantities. So a little bit later on, you're going to hear me talk about foods that are good sources of soluble fiber and good sources of insoluble fiber. Even if a food is a good source of soluble fiber, it's still going to contain some insoluble fiber. Most foods have both kinds. But when I say that a food is a good source of one or the other, it just means that it's got more of that one than the other one. Okay? But fruits, veggies, whole grains, they're all going to be good sources of both kinds of these fibers. Both types of fiber are fermented in the large intestine. So whatever kind you're eating, and it's really important not to get super hung up on how much soluble fiber and how much insoluble fiber, because we need them both. And again, they're both found in most foods that contain fiber. So when you're getting one, you're usually getting some of the other. But both types of fiber are good for the bacteria in our large intestine. So we do want to get them both in our diet. And that's just another reason to do so. That bacteria in our gut likes to chomp on both kinds of fiber. All right. So let's get a little more into soluble fiber here. So soluble fiber, this is the stuff that mixes with water, acts like a gel, travels through our digestive system. Soluble fiber has a ton of benefits. Because it slows the movement of food through the digestive system, our stomach empties more slowly than it would after a low fiber meal. So this means the stomach feels full longer. This is going to delay hunger and prevent overeating. So this can help control our weight. Delaying stomach emptying is also important for another reason. It also helps to keep blood sugar levels low. So if you have diabetes, this can be a really huge tool in your diabetes toolkit, soluble fiber. So when we eat a meal, just to give you a little biology background here, when we eat a meal, glucose from the food we eat passes into our bloodstream. So anytime we eat a carbohydrate, wherever it comes from, okay, whether it comes from milk or cake or an apple or a banana or a sweet potato, okay, whenever we consume carbohydrates, sooner or later, those carbohydrates break down in our body into glucose, okay? Some carbohydrates take longer than others, but sooner or later, they all break down into glucose. That glucose passes from our digestive system into our bloodstream. Well, glucose is sugar, and sugar is energy, okay? So that's how our body gets energy from the foods we eat. It turns it into glucose. So now that glucose has to get from our bloodstream into our cells, because in our bloodstream, it doesn't do us any good. It needs to get into our cells in order to let the cells do the activities that they need to do. How does the glucose get from our bloodstream into our cells? Through insulin, okay? So think of insulin as the key that unlocks the door of your cells and lets the glucose inside, okay? So insulin is a hormone that our body produces. Some people don't produce enough of it. Some people produce too much. Some people don't produce any, okay? But if you're producing just the right amount of insulin, insulin unlocks your cells, lets the glucose inside, okay? Hope everybody's with me so far. When the stomach is slower in emptying, less glucose is entering the blood. So what that means is our blood sugar increases at a lower rate. It still increases, that's normal, but it increases at a lower rate than when there's more glucose entering the blood, okay? So if you're eating a meal that's rich in soluble fiber is slowing the food moving through your digestive system, which is slowing the rate at which glucose is entering your bloodstream. So for people at risk for diabetes, or for people who already have diabetes, reducing those post-meal blood sugar spikes can help reduce a person's risk of diabetes, or for people who already have it, can help keep blood sugar levels more stable. So soluble fiber can be a really great tool. Diets high in soluble fiber can also help to reduce cholesterol levels. Soluble fiber, again, because of how it slows the movement of food through the digestive system, it also reduces how quickly our body sends cholesterol into our bloodstream, which can help to keep cholesterol levels down. So soluble fiber has a lot of great benefits. Again, both types of fiber are really important, but the benefits of soluble fiber are huge when it comes to managing blood sugar levels and cholesterol levels. The benefits of insoluble fiber are a little bit different. So the benefits of insoluble fibers are found mainly within the digestive tract. So on our last slide, we talked about this stuff that soluble fiber does in our bloodstream, right? Here with insoluble fiber, most of the benefits actually take place within our digestive tract. Insoluble fiber, again, acts like a sponge, okay? It soaks up water as it passes through our body. When water and insoluble fiber link up in our stool, the stool becomes heavier and bulkier. A bulkier stool is easier for us to eliminate, okay? So think about, go back to that idea of the sponge, all right? Imagine that I was asking you to pass a sponge through your digestive system, okay? Just bear with me here. Imagine you're trying to pass a sponge through your digestive system. What would you rather try to pass? A dry, crunchy sponge or a nice, wet, moist sponge? I don't know about you, but I think the wet, moist sponge would be a little bit more comfortable, right? Well, the same is true when it comes to fiber, okay? Fiber acts like a sponge. It absorbs water. So as long as there's enough water in your digestive tract for the amount of insoluble fiber that you've got moving through, you're going to have a nice, comfortable bowel movement. If you don't have enough fiber and you don't have enough water, or one or the other, it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable, okay? So this, when we don't have enough fiber or we don't have enough water, this can lead to constipation. Nobody wants that, all right? So keep that sponge idea in mind. So a diet high in insoluble fiber helps to prevent constipation, or as the commercials like to say, it helps to keep us regular. On the other hand, fiber can also help to prevent loose stools because it absorbs water and adds bulk to stools. So if you find that you're having looser stools, adding a little bit more insoluble fiber to your diet can help as well, because it helps to absorb some of that water. In the same way if you spilled water on your countertop, you'd take a sponge and clean it up because the sponge would absorb that water. Staying regular or preventing constipation can help reduce our risk of other conditions as well. So it helps reduce our risk of developing hemorrhoids. Nobody wants hemorrhoids, okay? The main cause of hemorrhoids is from straining during bowel movements, and you strain when you're constipated. So preventing constipation goes a long way towards preventing hemorrhoids. And then there's also diverticular disease. So diverticular disease comes in two different forms. So there's diverticulosis, which is when pouches form in the large intestine, okay? Which that can be a problem for people because food particles can get stuck in those little pouches, and that can be very uncomfortable for people. So a lot of times people who have diverticulosis are advised not to eat things like tomatoes that have little tiny seeds, or strawberries that have little tiny seeds, because those things can get trapped in those pouches, which can cause a condition called diverticulitis, which is when those pouches become inflamed, and they usually become inflamed because something gets stuck in there. So getting enough insoluble fiber in your diet can help reduce the risk of both types of diverticular disease. And there are some studies that insoluble fiber may help to prevent colorectal cancer. The evidence here is mixed. The evidence on just about everything is mixed. For every study that you read, you'll read another study telling you exactly the opposite. But the theory, I think, is pretty good. The theory is that when we consume enough insoluble fiber, that fiber moves stools through the intestine, through the digestive system more quickly. And when that happens, that reduces the amount of contact time our intestine and our rectum and colon has with those stools. Well, think about it. What do stools contain? They contain all the stuff that we eat and that our body breaks down that we don't use. So it contains fiber. It contains things like dead cells that our body is trying to get rid of, but it also contains a lot of toxins that get into our body in a variety of ways. So if we're constipated or we're not having regular bowel movements, the stool that we have is spending more time in contact with the cells of our digestive system. And so the theory is that insoluble fiber keeps us regular, keeps those stools moving at a better rate through our digestive system, and reduces the amount of contact time that our cells have with those potential toxins. So it's a good theory. We need way more study on it, but in the meantime, fiber has so many other health benefits. There's really no good reason not to eat a diet high in fiber unless you've been advised to by your doctor for some dietary or digestive reason. The benefits surrounding both kinds of fiber are so valuable to us that it's not worth waiting for some conclusive study. If we eat more fiber now and in 10 years we find out that it happens to prevent colorectal cancer, fantastic. In the meantime, we've already been getting all the other benefits of fiber. Okay. The other type of fiber that I wanted to mention here is something called functional fiber. And functional fiber is not really a category of fiber in the way that soluble and insoluble are categories of fiber. But functional fiber is fiber that has been extracted from plants and added to other foods to boost fiber content. So this is fiber that you're going to find mainly in processed foods, okay? This is a way that food manufacturers add fiber usually to foods that don't contain a lot of fiber in the first place. So in theory, food manufacturers are trying to make these foods healthier by adding fiber, which is okay. But there's also a lot of reasons not to consume too much functional fiber. So let's break this down a little bit. Functional fibers are found in all kinds of foods. They're found in foods like yogurt. All right, yogurt naturally does not contain any fiber because yogurt comes from milk, which is an animal food. Animal foods don't contain any fiber. So it's a way to boost the fiber content of a food that doesn't traditionally contain a lot of fiber. But there's also functional fibers added to foods that aren't so good for you, like sugary cereals, sugary granola bars, even bottled waters sometimes contain these functional fibers. And it's just another way that food manufacturers try to get us to buy products by telling us that they're a good source of fiber. How can you tell if a food has functional fiber added to it? It's really hard. The food label requires only total fiber to be listed, not naturally occurring fiber and added fiber. But remember that fiber is found only in plant foods. So if the food you're buying doesn't naturally contain fiber, like yogurt or water, then it's got functional fiber added to it if it claims to have, grams of fiber on the nutrition facts label. Another way is to check the ingredients list. If you see some of those fiber words, like pectin, like some kind of gum, guar gum, xanthan gum, then you'll know that it's got those functional fibers added to it. Some functional fibers are also added for other purposes. Pectin, for example, we'll go back to that one. Pectin is added to a ton of different foods because it acts as a thickener. So in the same way you'd use it to thicken up your jam and make your jam gel on, in your canning, manufacturers add pectin to give texture or substance to certain foods. Guar gum is, again, a thickener and emulsifier that's used to keep salad dressings from separating on the grocery store shelf. So there's a lot of reasons to add fibers to foods, but just to bulk up the fiber content of a food isn't necessarily the best one, especially if it's something like a sugary cereal. Okay, a sugary cereal marketed to kids, but oh, look, it's a great source of fiber. Well, that's great. Fiber is important, but what you really want to look at is the overall healthfulness of the food that you're buying. Does adding fiber to a sugary cereal make that sugary cereal good for you? Probably not. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that most functional fibers are one or maybe two different kinds of fiber. Whereas when you're eating fibers that are found naturally in foods, in plant foods, you're getting a variety of different kinds of fibers. And again, a variety of fibers are important because that's what's good for our digestive and our immune systems. So just like we want to be getting a variety of vitamins and minerals, we want a variety of fibers too. If you take a fiber supplement, for example, something like Metamucil, okay, it's totally fine. Metamucil is completely fine, but most fiber supplements are made from a type of fiber called Cilium. Cilium is a type of insoluble fiber. It's perfectly natural. It's found in plants, and manufacturers have found a way to extract it from plants, and then you stir it into your orange juice or mix it with your yogurt, or you take a capsule of it, and that's completely fine. But the problem is that Cilium is only one kind of fiber. So if you're taking a fiber supplement every day, or you're eating this yogurt or granola bar that has this functional fiber added to it, probably a type of fiber called inulin, which is also good, found naturally in foods, but again, it's only one type of fiber. And if that's where most of your fiber intake is coming from every day, then you're not getting the benefits of all those other hundreds of different kinds of fibers that you'd be getting from plant foods. So to get the greatest benefit from fiber, it's important that we get most of our fiber intake by eating a variety of natural fiber-rich foods like fruits, veggies, whole grains. And then if you find that you can't get enough fiber from your diet, then it's okay to top off with a fiber supplement or even some of those functional foods, as long as they're overall healthful, okay? So maybe a plain unflavored yogurt that has fiber added to it would be a better choice than a sugary cereal topped off with some functional fiber. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So it's the same as I'd rather see you get most of your vitamins and minerals from food, and then if you can't get enough, take a multivitamin on top of it to cover all your bases. But don't make that multivitamin where you're getting most of your nutrients from. The same is true for fiber. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. All right. So how much fiber do we need now that we've talked about how important it is? It depends on your age. And the reason it depends on your age is because it depends on your calorie intake or your calorie budget. all right, how many calories you need every day. The more active you are, the more calories you need every day. Okay? And in general, I certainly do not want to make any assumptions, but in general, people under age 50 need more calories every day than people over age 50. Now, if you're over age 50 and you are running marathons and playing tennis every day and you exercise every single day of the week, you need more calories, okay? So it really depends on a whole bunch of different factors. Age is just one of them. But in general, the recommendation is to consume about 14 grams of fiber for every 1,000 calories that you consume a day. So the average American, as the USDA likes to say, the average American consumes about 2,000 calories per day. So the average American needs about 28 grams of fiber per day. Now, you may need more than 2,000 calories. You may need fewer than 2,000 calories. It depends on your age, your height, your weight, your activity level, and whether you're trying to gain weight, lose weight, or maintain your weight. All those factors are involved. If you need to know how many calories you need every day, because that's not information you have, I always recommend the myplate.gov website. I'll put that in the chat. I want to send this to everybody. There we go, myplate.gov. Myplate.gov has a great calorie calculator where you plug in a bunch of information, your age, your height, your weight, etc. And it pops out for you a pretty good calorie budget. It is standardized, so there's always some wiggle room there. But in terms of the calorie calculators I've seen over the years, I find it to be pretty good. So if you're not sure how many calories you need every day, check that out. Okay, so for adults under age 50, the recommendation is for men to get 38 grams of fiber a day and for women to get 25 grams of fiber per day. Notice that wide difference there between men and women, and that's because men usually need more calories every day than women. Again, you know, that varies wildly depending on your activity level. Over age 50, men need 30 grams of fiber a day, women need 21 grams of fiber a day. Okay, so this is meant just to be a guideline. Your specifics will be based on your calorie needs. Remember, it's 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories per day. So that begs the question, how many grams of fiber does the average American get every day? That average American who's eating 2,000 calories. The average American gets between 12 and 15 grams of fiber per day. We do a really lousy job at getting enough fiber in our diets. And the main reason is because we do not eat enough plants. Bottom line, we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, and so therefore we don't get enough fiber. So where are we going to find fiber? Well, remember, fiber is only found in plant foods. So soluble fiber, good sources of soluble fiber include barley, oats, and rye. Okay? All whole grains contain soluble fiber, but these are the top three in terms of soluble fiber. In fact, oats have more soluble fiber than any other whole grain. So if you're looking for a fast way to get more soluble fiber into your diet, the best thing you can do is start your morning with a bowl of oatmeal. It's really one of the easiest ways to get more soluble fiber in your diet. I'm sure you've seen all the Quaker Oats commercials over the years that tell you that Quaker Oats lowers your cholesterol. It's because of the soluble fiber. So oats are really helpful. I know some of you are looking at that top bullet point there and saying, wait a minute, barley, oats, and rye all contain gluten. I can't have any of those things, okay? Barley and rye, certainly you cannot. Oats, you can if you are a careful shopper. Oats do not naturally contain gluten. What happens is that many food manufacturers in the United States process oats on the same equipment that they also process barley, rye, and wheat on. And so the oats become contaminated with, potentially contaminated with gluten. So if you're shopping for certified gluten-free oats, you can eat oats safely. There are many manufacturers now that offer these. I buy the Bob's Red Mill variety a lot of the time. I'm not gluten-free myself, but my very best friend from childhood is. And I, at Christmas time and at holiday time, I do a lot of baking. And so I always buy the certified gluten-free oats so that I know that she can safely eat anything I'm going to make. So you can certainly start your day with a bowl of oatmeal as long as you're buying those safer varieties for yourself. Cruciferous veggies. Those are the cabbagey sorts of vegetables, things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage. Really great source of soluble fiber. Fruits, okay, all kinds of fruits, but citrus fruits in particular, apples, pears, strawberries, legumes, beans, peas, lentils, peanuts, and then root veggies, potatoes, carrots, parsnips, turnips, anything that grows underground is a good source of soluble fiber. Insoluble fiber, you're going to get from whole grains across the board. Whole grains are a double bang for your buck. You get soluble fiber and insoluble fiber because insoluble fiber is found in bran. So we could do a whole hour just on whole grains, but bran is the outer part of any grain kernel. So quick and easy example, brown rice versus white rice. Okay, all rice starts out brown, forgetting about like black rice and purple rice. Just go with me here. All rice starts out brown. White rice becomes white because they grind the bran, the brown stuff, off the outside. Okay, so that brown stuff, the bran on the outside, that contains a lot of insoluble fiber. So whole grains of any kind are loaded with insoluble fiber. And then anytime you buy bran in a bag, okay, so oat bran, wheat bran, any of that stuff, and add it to your oatmeal or your yogurt or your baked goods, you're adding insoluble fiber. Nuts and seeds, okay, whatever you like, all kinds. Again, because they've got that, it's very much like whole grains. It's got that whole kernel there. Veggies and beans of all kinds, and the skins and peels of fruits and vegetables. The skins and peels is where the insoluble fiber is. So whenever possible, leave the skins and peels of fruits and veggies on. Eat the skins on apples and potatoes and sweet potatoes and pears. Don't peel those off. Give them a really good scrub and then eat the whole thing because that's where the fiber is. Even something like citrus fruit, okay? You're peeling an orange or a tangerine, all that white stuff that clings to the fruit, try to leave some of that on. There's a ton of fiber there, okay? You don't have to leave the whole thing on, but a few pieces gives you a ton of fiber. So, can I get too much fiber? Yes, you can. And there are some people who do. So for example, like me, if you're really fired up now about fiber and you're going to rush right out to Wegmans and go buy a bunch of fruits and vegetables, you really can get too much fiber in your diet. Again, you want to get just the right amount because too much fiber can cause problems. Because fiber carries water out of our body, too much fiber can lead to dehydration. Also, it can lead to constipation if you're not drinking enough water. Remember, we want things to move through the digestive system at the right rate. Well, if it goes too fast and we get diarrhea, we're also going to be dehydrated. If it goes too slowly and now we're constipated, that's not good either. Too much fiber can also lead to poor absorption of nutrients. If you're eating too much insoluble fiber and food is moving too quickly through your digestive system, there's not enough time for your body to absorb all the nutrients from your food, and can lead to a reduction in calorie consumption, which sounds like a really good thing. And for a lot of us, it is. Okay, this is one of the ways that fiber helps with weight control. It keeps us full longer so we don't eat as much. But if you're a person who already has a small appetite or you're already underweight, you don't need a reduction in calorie consumption. So you want to make sure that you're eating the right amount of fiber for you. And that's going to depend on your calorie needs. Also, and I'll say this again before we end today, please remember that if you increase the amount of fiber in your diet, you need to increase the amount of water in your diet as well. That's really important. Remember, think of water or think of fiber like a sponge. Okay, that insoluble fiber is going to soak up water. And if you don't have enough water in your body, you're going to end up bloated, gassy, constipated, and you're going to say, oh, that Jennifer Johnson, she told me to eat more fiber. Well, hear me now. I'm also telling you to drink more water. Okay, I want to give you a quick example of a high fiber day. I want to make sure that we're going to have enough time for any questions. So these are just examples. I know some of you will be thinking, I could never eat this much food in a whole day. That's okay. I just want to show you how easy it is to get more fiber in your day. So for breakfast, if you ate half a cup of rolled oats, okay, plain, so this is regular oats that you cook on the stovetop for 8 or 10 minutes, cooked in water, topped with 1 sliced piece of fruit. Okay, I have a peach here, but it could be whatever you want, an apple, a banana, along with another piece of fruit. So 2 pieces of fruit for breakfast, along with the oatmeal, and then whatever drink you have. That's 10 grams of fiber just at breakfast. Okay, you're already almost halfway to your goal, depending on your calorie needs. So even if you could only eat 1 piece of fruit with the oatmeal, that's huge. Okay, that's a ton of fiber. For lunch, a cup of minestrone soup. Why minestrone? Because it's loaded with veggies and it also has beans, okay? And this is just a regular canned grocery store soup. When I did this, I think I used like Progresso soup, okay? So this isn't even homemade, just plain old regular minestrone soup, half a turkey sandwich on whole grain bread, and then for dessert, because you get to have dessert, 1 whole grain cookie. The example I used here is the Kashi brand, which they're really nice sized cookies. A cookie has about 150 calories and it's got 4 or 5 grams of fiber, 13 grams of fiber at lunch. So depending on your calorie needs, you've already met your fiber intake for the day. Okay, huge. Dinner, protein of choice. It's not going to have any fiber. 1 medium sweet potato baked, along with a cup of Brussels sprouts. Maybe you don't want a cup of Brussels sprouts. Maybe you only want half a cup. Maybe you want half a cup of broccoli instead. That's okay. 1 cup of some kind of leafy green vegetable. And then for dessert, a yogurt with an ounce of walnuts, about the amount that fits in your palm, and 1/4 of a cup of raspberries. 12 grams of fiber. And then after all that, if you're still hungry, you can have a small apple with an ounce of cheddar cheese. No fiber in cheese. All the fiber comes from the apple, 4 grams. That's 39 grams of fiber for the whole day. Okay. Do you notice what's not in here? A lot of processed foods. Okay. Most of our processed foods are stripped of their fiber. Refined grains like white bread, white pasta, white rice, stripped of their fiber. So just like pretty much every other topic we talk about, the more we can stay away from processed foods, the healthier we're going to be, and the easier it's going to be to get more fiber in our diets. You don't need functional fibers when you're eating these kinds of whole foods. So a few tips on adding some more fiber to your diet. Start out with a high fiber breakfast. Always start out the day the way you want to go, because then no matter what else happens during the rest of the day, You started out the day on a good note. You've gotten a good chunk of fiber in already for the day, like the breakfast I showed you in that example. When you're shopping for whole grain breads, look for breads that have at least 3 grams of fiber per slice, okay, per slice. Make the switch to whole grain pasta and brown rice. This can be hard for people if you've had a lifetime of eating white pasta and white rice, so take it slowly. I always advise people to start out with a mix, cook half white pasta and half whole grain pasta and mix it together. And then gradually increase the amount of whole grain pasta that you're eating. It will take your palate some time to adjust. Try new grains that you've never had before. Next time you do your grocery shopping, check out the bulk section. You can buy tiny amounts of quinoa, bulgur, barley, millet, whatever you haven't had before. Take it home and give it a try, and you can do that without committing to a whole big bag. For snacking, try fruit with nuts. One of my very favorite snacks is an apple or a banana with peanut butter. Amazing. Veggies with hummus or popcorn for snacks. Popcorn is great. Popcorn is a whole grain. It's loaded with fiber. Scrub fruits and veggies well and leave the skins on. We talked about that. Swap beans for meat. So the easiest place to do this when you're first starting out is in things like soups and chilies. So if you have a soup recipe that calls for a pound of meat, try using half a pound of meat and then make up the rest with beans. And then again, gradually work your way up to substituting the beans completely. Add more veggies to soups or stews. Soups and stews are very forgiving. If the recipe says a cup of carrots and you want to add 2 cups of carrots, it's not going to hurt anything. So pop in more veggies to get more fiber. Swap whole wheat pastry flour for white flour when you're baking. If you're using whole wheat pastry flour, you can swap it cup for cup. If you can't find whole wheat pastry flour and you can only find whole wheat flour, you can use half. So if a recipe calls for 2 cups of all-purpose flour, use 1 cup of all-purpose flour and 1 cup of whole wheat flour in your baked goods recipes. Use oats instead of breadcrumbs if you're making meatballs or meatloaf or breading something. Add ground flax seeds, wheat germ, or oat bran to your baked goods. That can be an easy way to bump up the fiber content. Think smoothies, not juice. So I know some people are into juicing. The occasional juice is fine, but when you're juicing, all of the pulp is being stripped away, as well as the skin of the fruit or vegetable. When you make a smoothie, you're tossing in the whole thing, okay? So you're getting all the fiber as well as the juice. Add veggies to your sandwich. Not just lettuce, tomato, onion, but also things like cucumbers or peppers, avocado. Those can be a great way to get more fiber in your diet. And a couple more tips here. Gauge your current intake. Before you know how much fiber you need to add, you need to know how much you're taking in now. So spend a couple of days jotting down what you're eating, looking up the fiber content of those foods, so you see how far you have to go, okay? If you add too much fiber, remember too much can also not be good. Increase fiber gradually. Doing too much too soon can lead to constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating, cramps, all kinds of unpleasant stuff. So increase slowly. A couple extra grams of fiber, every day. Do that for a week or 2, then bump it up again. Make sure that you're doing it nice and slow. Remember that whole foods have more fiber. The more processing, the less fiber a food will have. So to give you an example here, a whole apple with the skin on is going to have more fiber than applesauce would, and applesauce is going to have more fiber than apple juice would. So whenever possible, stick to the fruit or veggie in its most whole form. And please drink more water. It's really, really important. to drink more water when you're increasing fiber intake. It will really help to alleviate any digestive issues that you might have when adding more fiber. So what's the bottom line? Fiber is loaded with health benefits, but most of us don't get anywhere near enough. And we really should, because increasing fiber helps with weight management, helps with digestive health and the health of our immune system, and helps us prevent and manage chronic conditions like diabetes and high cholesterol. So while everybody is thinking for a minute about if you have any questions for me or there's anything you need me to clarify, I just want to remind everybody that we're also continuing on at Highmark with our Healthy Blue seminars. These are the seminars that we used to do in person at our Medicare centers, which I hope we'll be doing again someday in person. But in the meantime, we're doing them like this online. I am teaching most of them. So please join me. You can visit our website at bcbswny.com/meetings to see what's available and register. You do need to pre-register because I have to email you the link to click on to get onto the program. So you need to register if you want to attend. Classes are scheduled through the end of the year right now. I'm hoping to have the classes for January up in the next week or two. And coming up for December, our topics are healthy eating for the holidays and nutrition tracks. So please check out the website. And if you can join me for any of those, I would love to have you. And I appreciate you having me today. So if anybody has any questions for me, I would love to hear it.
Jennifer, thank you so much for giving that presentation in such a digestible way. Ah, anyway, you're
Love
much
it.
appreciated. And before we jump into the questions, Jennifer will be back with us on December 8th at 10:30 for Nutrition in the News too. So take advantage of all of her programming.
Yes, and I wanted to say too, if so, nutrition in the news, we're going to be talking about, things you see in the paper and in the news and magazines about all these foods that are supposed to be so good for you. If anybody has any specific requests, anything in particular you've heard about, just please pop it in the chat for me. I'd love to know so that I can make sure that I'm answering, whatever questions you have.
Definitely, I'll be monitoring that. So the chat or the Q&A, we're looking at it all. Okay, so this first thing I'm seeing is any mention of, is it FODMAPs, non-fermentable fiber? Do you have any thoughts on that part, Jennifer?
So for some people struggle with the fibers that ferment in the digestive system. It causes a lot of digestive difficulties for them. And so they look for fibers that are not fermentable or less fermentable by the bacteria in our gut. So you'll see that sometimes on some foods. It'll tell you this is a low FODMAP food or a high FODMAP food. FODMAP stands for, oh boy, it's the F and the O is fructo, oligo, and those are two kinds of saccharide. Fructo is like fructose sugars. Oligosaccharides is a type of complex carbohydrate. And I can't remember what the rest of the acronym stands for. But I know for some people who are trying to be cautious about those things, that's a little more detailed than I was getting into today, because for most people are looking for more fermentable fibers, because that's giving our immune system and our digestive system a boost. But for some people that causes a lot of discomfort, and so they're really cautious about those things. Yeah, I'm afraid off the top of my head I can't really get into a ton of detail about that. Sorry, I'd have to do a little more research.
That's all right, Jennifer. Thank you. This next question is, can psyllium be used instead of Metamucil? I.e., does Metamucil have any additional health benefits than psyllium?
That's a really good question. Metamucil is just a brand name. So if you're buying Metamucil, it's psyllium powder, psyllium husks, and then probably some kind of flavoring, maybe something to make it dissolve a little more easily in whatever you're stirring it into. You can also buy just generic or, store brand Cilium as a fiber supplement. And I see it sometimes in health food stores, like in baggies that you can buy. There's no particular benefit except that the kind that are designed to stir into stuff, maybe they taste a little bit better because they probably have flavorings and stuff added to them. But if you're just adding it to like oatmeal, for example, or you're putting it in a baked good or something, you won't notice, you won't even notice the taste. It would be like adding, wheat germ or, oat bran or something to a food.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Next, we have a comment. A medication that I'm taking tends to make me constipated. This was very helpful today. Thank you.
Oh, great. I'm so glad.
Okay, this is miss your suggested type of rice, white versus brown.
Brown rice is going to have much more fiber because it's brown, and so it contains the bran on the outside. That's what makes it brown. So brown rice is going to be more fiber rich, and it's also going to contain other vitamins and nutrients that white rice does not. White rice has been stripped of its outer covering to make it white. And so it's missing a lot of vitamins and nutrients as well as fiber. Now, I know in some grocery stores, you can also get black rice, you can get like purple rice, some of those more exotic types of rice. Those are all okay. Those are all going to be whole grain too, because they've got that outer, coating on them. You might want to check the label to be sure. Another whole grain is wild rice. So wild rice also contains a ton of fiber, and that can be a really, really nice thing to cook with. It's got a really great flavor. And for people who don't necessarily like brown rice because it tastes too nutty, I find a lot of people like wild rice because we're used to having it in soups and things like that. And so people are already a little more accustomed to it. So it can be a kind of a bridge to brown rice for people.
Great, thank you. And I know we're a touch over time. Do you have a couple more minutes? Because we have things
Sure.
coming in. Okay. All right. This one is I have chronic constipation and take Miralax and 2 fiber gummies every day. How much additional fiber should I try to take every day?
That's a tough one because you need to know, so you need to know what the fiber content is of the supplements that you're taking, plus about how much fiber you're getting from whatever foods you're eating. Plus, you need to know how much fiber do you need every day. So it's kind of like doing one of those math problems where you don't have all the information. So you need to have all of those factors before you can figure out how much you need to add to your diet. A couple other things help with constipation as well. Drinking more water can help a lot, and also movement. So just going for a walk or getting more exercise. It literally stimulates our system to get going. So that can be helpful for people too. In addition, fiber is super helpful, but it's one factor in the whole equation.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This next thing is, are there fiber benefits to eating blueberries daily?
Yeah, so blueberries, like all fruits, contain both soluble and insoluble fiber, and all kinds of berries. So blueberries are not the best example, actually, because so strawberries have their little seeds on the outside, and you can see them. Raspberries and blackberries have their little seeds inside each of their little bubbles. Blueberries, the seeds are much smaller and they're inside, and you kind of feel them on your tongue when you're eating them. But all those seeds in berries contain a ton of fiber, in addition to the fiber that you get from the skin and the pulp. So blueberries are a really good source of fiber, like all other fruit, and particularly like all other berries. Berries are a great source of fiber. And blueberries give you a ton of other nutrients as well. But I would say they shouldn't be the only fruit you're eating. So as long as you're eating them, in a variety with other fruits as well, they're a great addition to your diet.
Perfect. Okay, so a couple more things here that are suggestions for next class. So before I get into
Oh,
that,
great. I'm gonna get a pen.
will you give I think this person's looking for the My Plate website again, please? I know it was up in the chat, but it
Yeah,
doesn't look like it came through to everybody.
I'll put it in the chat again. And I'm sending it to all attendees.
Hmm.
So I hope that goes to everybody. myplate.gov. See it in there. So I hope everybody can see it. Myplate.gov, if you're familiar with the used to be the food pyramid, now it's a plate. It's that website from the USDA, and there's a ton of information on there, other information too. But there is and you might have to go to Google or something and search for myplate.gov calorie calculator. But that calorie calculator, I think it's one of the easiest to use and most accurate ones I've seen, kind of for mass use for people who aren't, dietitians working with people one-on-one.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, I missed a question here. This is, don't like oatmeal. Can oatmeal cookies be used without added sugar for fiber intake?
Yes. So foods that contain oats are going to be good. Again, you want to be careful about sugar. Something that we used to do, my husband, normally my husband works from home too, but he's not here today, so I can say this. I don't have to worry about him hearing me. My husband was a really big baby about oatmeal. He didn't want to eat it. He didn't like oatmeal, but his cholesterol kept going up, so we had to do something. So he would eat brown rice. We would make a big pot of brown rice, and every morning he would heat it up and pour a little milk on it, and put a little cinnamon and stuff on it, and he would eat it like oatmeal. But it wasn't oatmeal; it was brown rice. So you could do another whole grain. Oatmeal happens to be the one with the most soluble fiber, but other whole grains are good sources of soluble fiber too. So if you really can't stomach oatmeal, you have other choices too.
That's good to know. Thanks, Jennifer. Was it like warm still? I'm just picturing
Yeah,
like a rice pudding. Okay.
yeah, he'd heat it up just like oatmeal and pour a little milk on it. Yeah, raisins.
Oh, whatever works. Okay. All right. So this is for nutrition in the news. I'd like to learn more about longevity nutrition. David Sinclair and his research promoting N as in Nancy, M as in Mary, N as in Nancy, NMN, and resveratrol, etc.
Okay. David St. Clair. Okay.
Then we've got hibiscus tea.
Oh, okay.
And then the last thing I'm seeing is what the heck is the keto diet?
That would be a great title for a program. What the
Yeah,
heck
it
is the
probably
keto
needs its
diet?
own thing. Okay, now I'm just seeing thank yous. Thank you, very informative. Thank you for sharing. So Jennifer, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you next week.
All right, bye everyone.